without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, guess any.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's another Coast to Coast show where I am your host, Pags, and I've got with me Bo in the middle and McLovin on the other side. Yeah, he tried to get started early, but you know what? He showed up too late. He had 5 minutes ahead of time, but no, he didn't want to show up early. Tried to bap, all excited that his Cowboys won the NFC East, but it doesn't matter what they do now, what they did now. It's all 0-0, and I kind of expect that the Cowboys are going to get their butts beat by the Packers in week 1 of the playoffs. So, but anyways, starting off, how was everybody's weekend?
Well, we know how yours was.
I don't have that video for show here.
Bo, by show of hand, please. Do you honestly think, given what the Eagles have done recently, do you really think that they have a shot in hell at this point? Because I don't think they do.
I mean, it's good that they're going against Tampa in round 1 because they need to use that as a get-right game because, let's be honest, down the stretch here, it's not been pretty. Not that my team did anything better, right? I mean, they squeaked out a win in Arizona, and, we had to rely on the Bears to play football. So, I mean, we pretty much knew we weren't going to make it, but I
got to disagree with you. From my point of view, these last 2 weeks have been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he got given a gift. Yeah, I guess Jerry had paid off.
No, it's been pretty fantastic just watching you go down like a.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you know what? When we go and we beat Tampa, and possibly if you guys are still in it, because I think the Packers got your number anyways, because you guys like to lose to the Packers in the playoffs.
But we're at home, and last time I checked, we haven't lost at home this season.
Yeah, but you guys like to lose to the Packers in the playoffs.
Maybe you should do a little research.
You know what?
Maybe
This
you
season,
should call the. Maybe you should go.
This season doesn't matter anymore.
Or I was going to burnt eagle, but that's like I think that's a.
It doesn't matter anymore. I can mute you. I have the power. I have the power. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't matter because you know what? We have the same record right now.
True.
The same record right now.
You got the same record. You just don't have the same leading up record. That's all.
Doesn't matter.
It matters. Oh, no, it matters. Probably because right now in that locker room, they're all scratching their heads going like, damn.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So they took 2 days up there. They went up to New York early, and they actually, like I said, I think they were hungover for this game. I don't think they cared about this game. I think
that's what losers say. I get it. That's what a typical loser would say. I'm right there with
Listen,
you. Sleep good at night.
You can say whatever you want. When the Packers beat you, I know you're going to say you can't be here because you got to go do something. You're going to have to go do something. You're going to be away next week when we smack you down, and I get to laugh about the fact that the Packers beat you on national television.
You probably thought that this week.
The game before you is not even going to be on national television.
I got a feeling when you lose, you're going to be thankful that I wasn't at the last part of that. I won't be on the show. I just won't be maybe like the last 20 minutes, but I'll be there and just enough to tell you.
Let's see if he shows up. Let's see. He just said it right now. Let's see if he shows up.
I'll be at the first part of the show.
After those boys get down.
We don't run like those screaming chickens do.
Yeah, see, now he's making fun of your
Seahawks. No, seriously. Dude, you are so bad that the United States is literally passing the Congress to get the bald eagle switched out for something else. Literally, you have caused the country.
Jokes aren't even funny. Your jokes aren't even funny.
From the bird of freedom.
I got 3 words for you.
How bad is that? How bad is the whole country want to disassociate the bald eagle? Seriously.
Yeah, see, I
saw a chipmunk going up the street yesterday, just beating the crap out of a bald eagle. I said, look, it's contagious.
Anyways, there was more things that happened other than an Eagles and a Cowboys game that occurred. Let's start with Saturday's games. The Steelers were able to outlast the Ravens and earn themselves a playoff bid in the process. Other thing, the Houston Texans, beat out the Indianapolis Colts, even giving up a 75-yard safety. They ran back. I think it had to be everybody like 50 yards. I felt, and then won that game. They won that game, and then what happened? Jacksonville decides to lay an egg and get beat by the Titans. So both winners on Saturday find themselves in the playoffs, which is actually very interesting. The Saints were able to do what they needed to do. The Lions took care of business, knocking out the Vikings and stopping theirs. The one game I thought there would not be a scored touchdown wound up having one scored touchdown. The Jets wind up beating the Patriots. In a big snooze fest, the Buccaneers beat the Panthers 9-0.
That was a terrible game.
Yeah,
that just tells you how good that first playoff game is going to be for them.
Yeah. The Browns decided not to show up at all, and the Bengals, scored 31 points, and then they decided to go take a rest and let the Browns get some points on the board so they didn't look so ridiculous. Wound up being 31-14. The Seahawks did everything they could to win the game. They scratched and clawed their way to a 21-20 game and still didn't make the playoffs because the Bears could only muster 9 points.
Yep, because the Bears are the Bears.
Yeah.
They are who we thought they were.
Carson Wentz got back to his winning ways from 7 years ago and beat the 49ers 21-20. The Raiders beat the Broncos. Who cares? Chiefs beat the Chargers. Who cares? The Cowboys started out down 10-7 and then wound up scoring a lot of points. So
opposite of what you did.
You had to be a little worried at the beginning of that game, though, because you guys.
I wasn't worried, man. They do it for a little dramatic effect, I just like how you take Pags' score over there, what he did, flip it, and that's what we did.
Yeah, that first bit of it, though, you guys did.
Yeah, it was. I agree. No, it absolutely was. And I'm kind of a little bit worried about Micah Parsons a little bit because he's got that jacked up hand. He can set up pretty well taped. So I was kind of like telling myself, once we got to a certain point, I'm like, man, hey, start pulling these starters because we really got to start conserving, for the playoffs, the first round. Not that I don't really expect. Look, man, these are coming into Dallas. You really expected them to get the win? Okay, if so. Oh, I guess I'll take that bet. Pags, you want to take that bet? I'll lay down a little money on that on the side. I'll take some money.
I might do that.
You got a lot of. Hey, listen. I don't know if that face paint goes to the epidermis, but I think it's got a little bit to your cranium.
Look at him trying to use big words, even in the right
cranium,
right side.
I can't even spell it. Can't spell it, but I can sure as hell say it. And I know what it means.
Now, see that's what's good about the camera being away from the screen, right? Because then you can be Googling words.
Hey, don't give away my tricks.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know he's a Cowboys fan. He doesn't really have a big vocabulary.
Listen, you know what? Hey, I'm dumb as a box of rocks. When the wife calls me, I put it on Google Translate just so I can understand half of what she says. But I will tell you this. I don't need Google Translate to tell me some damn numbers.
Well,
and I can sure as hell match up a number to a picture.
So,
okay.
From right where it says loser.
All right, Jay. All right, I guess I got to mute him again.
So what are the Cowboy numbers in January again?
But hey, maybe a little bit better than the Seahawks.
I don't know. We've won a ring since you guys have.
Oh, yeah. Singularly. I like how you don't put an S at the end of that because you don't have a whole
I love
team.
it. It's just like a cow turd. Just like a cow turd fan.
He's pouring one out.
Just like a cow turd fan. He's got to go back into the deep history, back when he only had a little bit of gray in his beard, to talk about when he won a Super Bowl.
He won.
Good stuff.
Well, I hope we win a ring. I don't have a lot of faith in it, but I hope we win a ring. Just so I can say a couple of words I can't say on TV.
Anyways, the first chopping was Atlanta. He got fired. He wasn't even allowed to go back into the locker room.
No, as soon as he got off the plane.
Nah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you're done. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we all knew he was done even before. I think he knew he was done before this game. This was just a formality, if you will, at this point.
I'm surprised they let him on the team plane. I figured he was chartering a commercial flight home.
And I tell you, that's a Dallas Cowboys move. Yeah, I remember a couple years back when they were firing what's his face, the Clapper. They wouldn't. Yeah. Jerry Jones did not want him on the plane, and that plane was held up. They called it technical difficulties. The technical difficulty was they did not want to let the coach back on the plane.
Sometimes ripping it off like a Band-Aid is better than just letting him go out there and play another game. Sometimes you just
I understand.
And it's a sport. Hey, look, at the end of the day, it's a business, so it's not like these people don't know what's coming down.
Oh,
you can't tell him he didn't know before that game that he knew it was coming down. He had to know something.
I mean, we all knew Smith was getting fired 10 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll go back to. Do you think he gets another job? I think he goes back to being a coordinator again. I don't know if he's going to get another head coach.
He is a coordinator next time through. He's not getting another job this time.
I don't know if they'll give Josh McDaniels a couple extra tries at it. Why wouldn't they give him a couple extra tries?
Like, I think he'll get another shot at it, but it won't be this time around.
Yeah, I think that he may. Like, he'd have to go back to being a coordinator and then work his way back into being a head coach. But I don't think you don't have 3, 7, and 10 seasons and then all of a sudden get another head coaching position. He's not Belichick. You know what I mean? So, and it's already rumored that Atlanta's, Belichick's high on the list of Atlanta. They fired the GM Fitterer from Carolina. He's on the chopping block. Yeah,
he should be on the chopping block.
He got chopped. There was no. Yeah, he's off the chopping block now. He's in the trash. He was cut fat.
Well, I mean, you had to know that was going to be a thing when you give up your first round picks, you get rid of your talent, and you go get a number one, and you are horrible.
But but a little bit though, I think that owner has to take ownership a little bit over that because, like you said, he wanted Stroud, but he got outvoted by the owner for Young. So I mean, a little bit. I think the owner's got to take a little bit of that accountability for why they are where they are.
But
you can't tell me that just one instance was taking in Young versus Stroud was the only one that owner put on that GM.
No, I think what it is how much they gave away to make it happen.
Oh, I agree. I just think that owner's got just as much right for their failure as the GM does. And if I'm the GM, I'm probably gonna be a little pissed about it.
I agree with that. But if you're talking about a guy that threw drinks at people, I'm pretty sure he's not going to hold himself accountable.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
The other firing that occurred a couple hours ago was Ron Rivera, fired after his birthday. One day after his birthday and the beating from the Cowboys. Again, they kind of saw that was coming. That wasn't a big surprise that he's going. I got to imagine his whole coaching staff is going to disappear. They got Ron Spielman up there making some of the decisions for football operations for the Commanders. So I got to imagine they're going to start to bring in a lot of Spielman's people.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I would. I think this is where Eric Bieniemy could slide up to the head coaching spot if they're high on him enough.
So I wouldn't love that for Bieniemy.
I wouldn't either.
because that's a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
That particular job, I think, needs to go to a seasoned vet where it won't end their career if it fails, right? Like that's where you need a guy that's been around the block. And I only say that because I think Bieniemy, if he slid into that spot and it's a dumpster fire, which by all intents and purposes probably will be, that could make it so he doesn't get another shot at it. Whereas if you had a guy that's been around the league, or maybe Harbaugh comes back and fills that role or something, if it is a dumpster fire, they'll still get another shot. I don't know if Bieniemy gets afforded that. So, but that being said, with everything leaving, it seems like they want a clean slate all the way across.
Yeah, because all the way I think that works is if Bieniemy has a conversation with the GM and ownership and says, "Look, this is what you're giving me. You got to give me some time to bring in people I need to fulfill what I need them to fulfill." If he has those kinds of conversations where they understand what the game plan is, what the rebuild would look like, maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea. Because I really don't know this new ownership group. We all know the Dan Snyder ownership group, but I don't know this one well enough to know if that would be the end all be all for him unless he has those conversations. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't mind to see him go over to Atlanta. Atlanta just needs a damn quarterback. Slide up, get you a quarterback in the first round. And I think you could be looking at a really good team over there, especially if you're lucky enough to draft a Michael Penix, which I don't think he goes one. You could draft up maybe in the lower part of that top 10 and swoop him up at a pretty good price. I think you got a pro-ready guy that already knows how to be a pro in the league.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how patient this new ownership group will be with Washington, because everything is changing. So it's not like they're going to be awesome next year.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
In fact, they got to figure out the inner workings of the organization first, then get a new stadium. Then I think they're going to start to really worry about the team. I think the team is going to be the third thought in this, in the grand scheme of things. So my thought on Bieniemy, and I think the perfect fit for him is the Chargers job.
Oh, God.
I think the AFC West is kind of what he's most familiar with. I think that because they are the second team in that stadium and in LA, he could wind up being hidden, and I feel like his history, his past comes back to haunt him. And I think that's the reason why he doesn't go to Washington. I feel that for the same reason why he doesn't go to Atlanta, because Atlanta right now is a PR nightmare. With everything that they've got going on in their executive area. So my thought is that realistically, if there is a real shot for him to become a head coach, I think it's for the LA Chargers. And that's where a good spot for him to go would be. He would be going up against Kansas City and Denver. He knows those teams very well. Raiders, same situation. He knows all of those teams very well. And I think that he would be a really good fit there. And it would be the one spot where his past doesn't come back to haunt him, because they are the second team in that city.
Well, I'll tell you two things. Number one, if he did, could you imagine? No, seriously, could you imagine Bieniemy, and if he could get Michael Penix, have him get a draft in Atlanta with all the weapons that they got? Could you imagine what he could do for Penix's career? And probably, like I said, vice versa, what Penix could do for Bieniemy. I mean, that guy is. I mean, he's so smooth. His mechanics are so nice that I really think that could be an awesome. But I do get what you're saying with the PR side of it, and that could drive him away. On the flip side, I'm talking about San Diego. Good God, if he goes to San Diego, you think Kellen Moore is going to be like, well, I guess there goes my job? Because ain't no way in hell he's going to ride with Kellen Moore in San Diego.
No, I think Kellen Moore should be going anyways. I think Kellen Moore.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm right there with you. But what if they don't and they bring him in? My first order of business is, hey, if I'm going to be your head coach, Moore's out the door. I'll bring my own guy in. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the only way Kellen Moore survives there, which I don't think he does, but if he does, it's because they bring in a defensive coach. That's the only way that works. If they bring in an offensive-minded coach, Kellen Moore's out of there.
You know where I think Kellen Moore?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
You know where I think he winds up with? Carolina.
Oh God.
That's where he's like. I feel like that he would probably be best suited for that, because his basic offense would be perfect for a team that's not going to have any weapons. You know what I mean? So I mean, let's be for real. I mean, that offense isn't going to be very good anyways. Another good spot for him to hide. So it's like,
Pags, that's the first time I think I've agreed with you in a while. I totally agree that he could definitely hide out well out there in Carolina.
so
That's probably where my plane would be going if I got fired from San Diego. Is straight to Carolina and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm available. Let's do the damn thing."
Yep.
well, I would say so. That being said, the games coming up, Saturday's game, the 4:30 game is the Cleveland Browns versus the Houston Texans. The surprise Houston Texans winning that division. Now, I got to imagine that to go from worst to first is a big deal. You know what I mean? Like they were the laughing stock last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden D'Amico goes in there, sets a whole new culture, gets the the second and the third pick in the draft, gets a quarterback on the offense, a quarterback on the defense, and goes to town. And so it's amazing job. I kind of feel that he's probably a strong runner for Coach of the Year.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that GM Casario, the one they got from the Patriots, D'Amico and Stroud are both making that guy look amazing for what they've been able to do, right? I mean, and let's be honest, man. I tell you, and I after watching that game against the Colts, I still believe that Stroud should be in that conversation for NFL MVP, man. That guy looked good. He looked crisp. He was hitting all of his passes. I mean, that first one right up off the rip. I mean, come on, man. That guy didn't miss a beat. He's right back into where he was at before he got injured. I mean,
yeah, I unfortunately think Lamar Jackson's going to be the
Lamar's going to get it.
Away,
but I tell you,
but
man,
I agree. I feel like he should get some love there and maybe come in second or third in the voting for that.
I mean, the fact that he lost two of his biggest weapons and then goes to the next level of Mechie and Nico Collins and then brings them up to that next caliber level where nobody was even thinking about them and then does amazing things with them like he didn't even skip a beat, not having Tank Dell and Noah Brown there. I mean, come on, man. Damn, I mean, you could probably put anybody with this guy and he's going to make them look good. Can Lamar Jackson? I don't know. Maybe I don't like Lamar. He's a great runner. He has done a great job getting past Mark Andrews and finding Zay Flowers and company. But man, I don't know, man. He's not a rookie. This is a rookie doing this. That's even exponentially more impressive.
Well, and that's
from Ohio. Of all places, he came from Ohio.
Well,
nobody thought an Ohio guy was going to be worth it.
Let him talk there, Jason.
He probably does end up with Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Damn, sometimes you got to shut Jason up a little bit. Second game that nobody will get to watch because it's on Peacock.
Right.
The Miami Dolphins will be traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. By the way, the Browns are 2.5-point favorite in that game.
I do like the Browns in that game. It's one of those where the Texans overachieved. This might be one of those scenarios where they, anytime you get that kind of high, it's tough to match that energy the following week, right? So for them to sneak through that game, get into the playoffs, ultimately get handed the division title, I think they may just not quite have the same, oomph coming into this first game, especially as young as they are, whereas the Browns are littered with talent, right? Now, you have to believe that Flacco is that guy, and so, I mean, but I think the Browns probably take that game.
Well, and the Browns did beat them earlier this year on Christmas Eve. So I think that it'll probably be a good game. Obviously, I think, it'll be dependent on Flacco. Flacco is going to be the one that really determines how far the Browns are going to go.
Yep.
So be interesting to see that one. But going back to the game that nobody's going to watch because I don't know of anybody that owns Peacock at all.
Yep.
The Dolphins and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a 3.5-point favorite. The Dolphins kind of blew it yesterday. They did kind of blow it. I thought that the defense did pretty well, and then they let up that punt return.
Yep.
Yeah, which was the big deal. So I think that had they not had that Buffalo would have scored that touchdown. It would have been tied up, would have gone to overtime, and we all know how Josh Allen is in overtime. He's a loser. And I think that the Dolphins would have won that game.
So you think they sandbagged it right at the end so they didn't have to turn around and play him again this week?
Well, they would have. I mean, but it would have been at home.
It would have been at home. It would have been at home.
So it's it was a big deal. So I mean, I kind of like I would have been like, oh, they're going to make it right back in the same spot. To go from the number 2 seed to the number 6 seed is a tough pill to swallow there.
For sure.
But the one thing that was already determined that by the time that game got played, everybody was in the playoffs.
Yep.
So the fact that Pittsburgh made it in was a big surprise, which brings me to our next game for the first game on Sunday. The Steelers, the number 7 seed Steelers, the ones that they said, no, they're not going to go 500 this year. I was one of them. Wound up going more than 500 and play the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a 10-point favorite. I think the Bills run away with this one. The Bills wound up catching a big break, being able to play the Steelers for week 1.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think they did catch a break, but then again, sometimes catching a break, can actually put you in a bad spot because you're thinking you caught a break. So maybe you don't go out there with the same intensity you would normally play them. Maybe you take it a little bit easy, and then the Steelers come up and snag one from you. I mean, we've seen that happen a time or two before. So I would tell them, don't overlook them. Take every game as if it's a Super Bowl, because you'll overlook the Steelers. George Pickens and company, Mason Rudolph ain't playing around with him. Najee Harris and T.J. Warren that run game. The only thing that I would say that kind of concerns me with the Steelers, really more than anything, is T.J. Watt and that injury that he sustained.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you always got to worry about trap games.
Well, and it's not a trap game in the playoffs.
I mean, it kind of is.
Not really. I don't see that. I mean, I think Pittsburgh has the problem that they always have. They're going to have a hard time scoring points. And that's a big deal. Like, that's going to be the problem there. So I think the Bills are going to be able to score points. You got to get over. You have to score over 19 points against the Steelers, and you win that game.
Exactly.
So, and I think it's going to be. I think it'll be a 21-10 game right off the top of my head. It could even be a little bit more, like 24-10, something like that. But
that's kind of where I was at. I was thinking like 24-13.
Got you. So game number 2 is where the Packers are coming down to Dallas. And I tell you, the Packers are the youngest team in the NFL. They were surprised getting in the number 7 seed. And ultimately, I think this is going to be a tough out for the Cowboys. Now, it's the playoffs, obviously. So playoffs, you can't go looking past anybody. I feel like that they were a little bit better of a choice than – Seattle played you guys tough down there in Dallas as well. So
but who got the win?
You did. You guys
did.
Okay,
I want to make sure I was.
Yeah,
I want to make sure. And can I ask you something? Who leads the NFL in interceptions? Can I ask you that question? Do you even know? Oh yeah. No, you don't care because that's why
you know what the regular season is over.
You don't care. You don't even know what you're talking about.
You can throw out all these stats about
you don't even know who's leading the interception. You jabroni!
When was the last time the Dallas Cowboys made it further in the playoffs?
I was on this a blanket statement.
When was the last time the Dallas Cowboys made it further in the playoffs?
If you knew any damn thing, you know that Mike Bland leads it.
I love it. When you don't even hear of it, it's still
Jason. You can mute me all you want.
Oh man!
So, anyways,
Fucking Eagles fan.
7.5 point favorites here. I think this is going to be a good game, and I think Dallas is in for a battle. Ultimately, I do
Yeah.
think they win this game. I
Yep.
don't think that. I think Jordan Love is going to get a little.
Now you're covering your ass for what you said earlier. Okay, that's great. I like how you say something and then you go back and cover yourself so you can look better. Wait, just stick to what the fuck you're
I
saying.
look good all the time. I look good all the time. So doesn't matter what you say.
Get some consistency. I'm telling you, Dallas is going to win that game. You're backtracking. Give me some
I ain't
consistency.
backtracking anything. Trust me,
Oh,
I
well,
stick by everything.
really think
Oh my lord! All day long today, we're gonna have to mute his ass
I mean, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game for him. I do think the Cowboys win it, but it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, it is. I think it's going to be tough. I think that it's going to come down to a last second. Like it's going to who has the ball last. Very similar to the way that Seattle played them.
So you said
I
the line
don't
is
think he's ready for Michael Parsons. I don't think he's ready for what that front seven is going to bring to the game. I don't think he sees anything like what that front seven is going to bring to the game. It's Jordan Love. Great. He's had a great season. I don't want to take that away from Jordan Love, but I don't think he's ready for the pressure that's going to come from Dallas and that secondary that we bring to the table. I don't think he's ready for that.
Yeah, this one probably is the Cowboys win, but they don't cover, right? Because it's 7.5. I think that half hook there is probably the difference.
Well, maybe. That might be. So that's why he won't cover. You say that it'll be a 7-point game. I actually think it'll be like a 4-point game. But
Okay.
We will see. Obviously the game will really say that, and we'll get to see that one because that will not be on Peacock.
Exactly.
That will be. What channel will that be on? That'll be on Fox.
Yeah, I believe it's Fox.
And then the 8 o'clock game that night is the Rams versus the Lions. The Lions are a 3.5-point favorite. Also, a very tough matchup for the Lions here, especially against the Rams. I think that they know Goff really well.
Of course.
I wouldn't be surprised at McVay there actually doing a little bit of dazzle to them, and being able to get above Detroit. I kind of feel like this is one of those times where it's like the Rams wind up getting a very good seeding and taking on the Lions. I think the Lions are the ones that are the vulnerable ones to lose out, in the first round here.
And I'll tell you, and Detroit did take some injuries on that last game that they played on the defensive side, which I think, to me, that's really more where the X factor comes in. Because I think St. Brown, you know what St. Brown brings to the table. You know what Montgomery brings to that run game with Gibbs on the side of that. I think it really comes down to whose defense is going to play better. And I don't like the fact that Detroit's defense took some pretty good hits on that game. And also Porta, they're a great tight end. He obviously walked away, I think, with a foot issue.
Going at it the other way, Goff, do you trust him as your quarterback to be able to win a playoff game? I know he's been to a Super Bowl.
So he has more on the line in this game than Stafford does, right? Like Stafford obviously won this matchup because he went on to go win a ring. So this is where Goff needs to try and dunk on his old team and try and get his own ring. So
you can't tell me Goff don't have a chip on his shoulder. Something to prove.
He should.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean is I think he has a little more incentive to go than the Rams do. Or Stafford in general. So this is one that I think Goff probably has the edge as far as, needing to prove something.
All right. And then the last game on Monday night, which I love. I love how the NFL loves putting us on Monday Night Football anymore. It seems like it's happening more and more frequently. The Philadelphia Eagles are traveling to Tampa Bay. And right now, the Eagles are a 2.5-point favorite.
Yep.
So
it's going to be an interesting game. Which Eagles team shows up?
I'll be honest. Yesterday's game, I firmly believe they threw in the towel. There was no interest in playing that game. The fact that they put out A.J. Brown and he had that scare, I think scared them all straight. You know what I mean? That and the dislocated middle finger of, Jalen Hurts. Yeah. They're like, okay. End of story. That was, I know because they said they went up there early. This team had a bonding session. I feel like that's what happened. They went up and they went to go bond with each other, and they were a little hungover. You know what I mean? I feel like that was part of it. It wasn't like it started out that the Giants were going to run away, and I think that they calmed down. They got everything back so that there was no more. All right, we're not going to look like we're going to give up a 70-point game here. So I kind of feel that there is something to go on, and that they rested everybody. Everybody just took a rest here. I think that Tampa Bay is not a very strong team. You know, we've already beaten them once. I feel like we'll beat them again. But, you know, ultimately.
God, if you don't beat Tampa Bay, I'm coming for blood, man. I'm going to come for blood like a damn vampire going to a fat girl.
Well, listen, just like you guys better get past Green Bay. We both
I'll
got
tell you what,
Bays.
hey, Bo, let's take a show of hands.
This
This is a tougher team.
We
Green
both got
Bay or
Bays
Tampa.
against us.
I'm just going to say Green Bay might be a little bit tougher than Tampa. I don't know. I'm just going to.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Looking at it,
I'm not saying Green Bay's going to lose to Green Bay, but I'm just saying I think Green Bay is a little bit more impressive than Tampa.
Looking at the way that these seedings occurred, I kind of look at it as that the 5 seed, even though it's away games, wound up being the better seed than the 2 seed. I think the 2 seed's a much harder seed to go up against. I mean, saying that, so assuming that everybody holds serve, you guys do get Detroit again, you know, and that's going to be a big chip on their shoulder because obviously they feel like they may have gotten wronged in that game. You know, that was a tough game for them to go up against. And then you would have to travel to San Francisco saying that they hold serve. Being the 5 seed here, and again, assuming everybody holds serve, the one thing that I kind of like about this is that the Eagles, if they were to win, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to give anything as a given. You gotta play the game. And if they don't play this Monday night, they're not going to win. They're just not going to win. But if they do play, which is I expect they will. I expect they're going to come out and play, play well. I think they're going to probably have the first good game in a long time. And I kind of feel that the NFL gave them the extra day of rest purposely. As funny as that sounds, the NFL makes these schedules so that they could have the most viewership throughout all of the playoffs. And viewership is going to go down if Philadelphia's out to a certain extent. So I think that they want Philadelphia in for the second round. I mean, can you imagine a Philadelphia-Dallas matchup?
No, that'd be
good. For the divisional round. I think that's exactly what they want. Even a Philadelphia-San Francisco matchup for the divisional rounds, it is something that the NFL would want. That being said, if everybody does hold serve, I feel that the Eagles going up against the 49ers with now 3 weeks rest, because that's really in essence, they rested most of their guys. The defense wasn't, but they rested most of their guys, and now they're going to have 3 weeks off. The last time the Eagles played the 49ers, the first quarter was a big quarter. Had we scored 2 touchdowns, you would have put a different type of pressure on Brock Purdy, and that game could have been much, much different. But it didn't. We didn't score those touchdowns. The defense came up and they held us twice. We walked down the field, couldn't get into the end zone. That decided the game right there. So if you were to score those 2 touchdowns, you make them a lot more nervous. Do I think we win that game? No, I don't think we win that game. I think that the San Francisco 49ers are the better team this year all the way around. However, any given Sunday, that's where I'm going ahead and using my one little thing there.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing for the Niners in this whole scenario is it means that they're going to be healthy. And anytime they've been healthy, they look tough.
Right.
In fear of being muted, I'm just going to let you have that crazy excuse you just gave.
That's not an excuse.
No. In fear of being muted.
I was going to let you talk now.
I'm censored, so I got to be quiet. I got to mind my P's and Q's on this show.
No. I like how he popped in. He's like, I'm going to let you finish.
I'm just trying to be a good boy. I'm just trying not to get thrown off the show. That's all. Very political these days out here in the world.
I mean, this is why you're only on 3
I'm
days a
not
week.
soft. I'm not soft. I got my thick skin on, especially with you.
I've been muted 3 times. How thick could your skin possibly be?
Hey, listen, no, I gotta mute you because you're always trying to talk over us.
Well, how you never shut up too?
Oh no, we shut up all the time, especially when you're talking. Anyways, so
priceless.
that being said, that's how it's all lined up here. I think I'll be honest with you. I believe that the NFL is going to reconsider that Peacock situation. You
Yeah.
know, that by Thursday they're going to see how many people actually have Peacock. You know, and
Yeah.
it may be like an NFL Network game along with Peacock.
Yeah, that one. They're probably going to let it play out and then realize the viewership was terrible.
I mean, why do Peacock when you can do NFL Pass or put it on NFL? If you really want to get the revenue, just put it on NFL Pass. People in their cable probably have that.
No, that's actually only Peacock right now. It is
I'm saying, but if they just take it off Peacock and put it all on NFL Pass, wouldn't that be more money?
It's got to be whatever their contract was. So
yeah, I understand.
This is something that they signed, at the beginning of the year, whenever this TV contract came together. But I think they're going to realize that it was a mistake just in viewership numbers at the end of it. But I think it plays out. I don't think it's smart, but we'll see what it is. I'm sure it was a way for NBC to try and, pump up the numbers of their streaming service. But I think what you're really going to see is sports bars are going to be busy.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that.
For instance, my living room, I live above a bar. My living room does not have Peacock. We have Amazon Prime. So if it was on Prime, we'd have been able to do it. Peacock, TV's got Roku. I can imagine you can get Peacock. Yeah, you can get Peacock for free. It's not like it's a big deal. So maybe
you have to pay for Peacock.
You do have to pay for Peacock. That is.
That's what I'm saying. I thought you had to pay for Peacock.
You do. That is a paid streaming service. You might be able to, if you've never had it, you might be able to do their 7-day trial or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, no, that is a paid streaming service. So
I don't think it's much. What is it, like $3 or $4? I don't think it's terribly expensive. Is it? I don't think it can be that much.
I think it's the same.
I thought it's all $9.99. Any service right now is $9.99.
Exactly.
Which is cheaper than doing like a pay-per-view or something. Not that expensive.
In your case, I guess you're just walking downstairs. If you're above a bar, you just go downstairs, you watch the game. At least your drive home, if you tie one on, is short.
And not only that,
those stairs, baby.
And listen, one of the secret tricks of the trade that the people listening here right now can get is there is a service out there that you could get on either the Apple phone or the Google store. It's called Dofu, DOFU. And it is a great service. You're 30 seconds behind, but it doesn't matter. If you ain't watching the game, you can go Dofu and you can get it for free. Sometimes it checks out and you have to refresh your browser, but you do get to stream it, and they do a really good job over there. So something that you could learn here on this show specific, that Dofu is a good service here.
I've never heard of that. I guess I learned something today.
Or if you have NFL Plus, that you'll be able to watch it.
No. First, they aren't doing NFL Plus.
So you won't be able to watch it on a screen. You'll be able to watch it on your phone. And if you have a phone that can shoot it to a Fire TV, you'll be able to watch it that way.
I do have Fire Stick. I could do that.
Yeah. So if you have NFL Plus, and even if you don't, it's like $30 now because we're so close to the end of the year. But I have it because it's the easiest way for me to get all the games. But because of the way that app works, you could shoot it to a Fire TV and still see it that way.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. See, I'm learning today. Bo, I love you.
See, sometimes we got to school the Cowboys fan. So,
Hey, and listen, I'm always ready for class. I always bring my sharpened pencil and my paper.
Well, clearly not. You're still a Cowboys fan.
And
oh, that lip's gonna fall off.
so Belichick, one more thing before we start to move on here, because I know we spent a good amount of time here on the NFL, but there's another football game that we should probably spend a little bit of time on today. That Belichick says that he's still heavily invested in the Pats, and it's too early to decide on whether he's leaving or not.
So I did see a thing that said he would be willing to remain as a coach with a different GM.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Where he was willing to take away that part. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes it feel a lot more like he wants to stay than I'll just entertain it, whatever. I mean, that sounds like he's actively negotiating. Hey, I get it. You want to strip these powers away. I'm still willing to coach in that scenario. Now, if you're the GM coming in that scenario, do you really think that you have say over Belichick? Because I don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it depends on who's the GM. If it's his son, then obviously there's no change there. I have to imagine that you'd have to bring in, imagine if they brought in Bill Parcells.
Oh God.
That would be hilarious. Let's do that.
Hey, that would be some karma right there. I don't like the fact, when I think of Belichick, I've always thought about this guy who just doesn't take no crap from no one. I'm Bill Belichick. And the fact that he's willing to be a little bit submissive just to stay on with it, I don't like that for his legacy. I just don't like it.
I just don't think it's a real thing. I think soon as the season starts, the GM is trying to do things and be like, pound sand and do what I want. So
I'm going to make about him.
I'm going to make a statement after I ask this question. I'm going to ask this question to Bo specific. How did Jason Peters do this year? And I'll bring it full circle in a minute. So here's the reason. And now I can ask you, how did Jason Peters do last year, Jason?
Yeah.
So, I'm saying
echo Bogan. I do believe what he's saying.
Some players, I feel like Jason Peters is absolutely a Hall of Famer. I feel that he lost his first ballot because he went players usually stay 2 years too long in the NFL. And Jason Peters, he stayed 4 going on 5 years too long. Same situation with coaching. Once you're done, you're done. I think Belichick knows that. Hey, listen, that was my first year. Let me say another year too long. Let me see if it was really just a mess that I created because I had too much on my plate at my age, or that I could bring it back around and make something happen and make this a playoff team here again. I feel like that this is, next year, if he has a year that's anywhere similar to this, and I'm talking anywhere similar being under 500.
Sure.
I think that's going to be the retirement because I think he hates to lose, just like anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just like Tom Brady. He had 2 competitors, and obviously Brady left the Patriots to go on to win another Super Bowl, and that just chaps Bill's ass because Bill's over there suffered in mediocrity. He had 1 playoff experience, lost his coordinator, hasn't been able to regroup since. Matter of fact, if anything, he's looked like a laughingstock with the whole defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, trying to be offense coordinator, bring in Bill O'Brien, can't do nothing with it. Riding Mac Jones for longer than he should have been when he had Zappe, who's not the greatest guy, not your godson, but probably could have got you more wins. I think that Bill, I think you're right. It would be hard for him to just go into the sunset now because he looks like crap. I think he should have gone into the sunset when Brady left, and I think for legacy purposes.
Yeah, I don't see him doing it for one other reason. He has one more legacy point he wants to finish because he's really close to being the winningest coach ever. So there's no way he retires. He's going to coach for at least 2 more years because he wants that title.
Right. And how many wins is he away? I think he's 18?
I don't even think it's that now.
Because he's going after Shula, right?
That
it's Shula that he's going after, right? Don
Correct.
Shula is
Yeah.
winning his.
Correct.
Because I remember when Don Shula won his 300th against the Eagles. It was at the vet, actually.
So, Bo, do you think his greed? Do you think that Bill Belichick's greed to be the best is ultimately the thing that does him in terms of the legacy? Like he said, staying too long, like Peters did.
I mean, I don't know how much you can hurt his legacy. He has 6 rings.
I understand that. No, it's not about the 6 rings, though. But it's more about the storyline. Yeah, but it's more about the storyline. Could he have done it by himself, or did he need Brady to do it? I think there's still a tarnishment on the legacy because we're always going to question that.
But here, I'll be
Sorry,
and I'll be 100% honest with that too. That last Super Bowl that he won, Brady had nothing to do with.
Sure.
No passing touchdowns. I mean, obviously McVay lost that Super Bowl at the when he went to go talk to Bill Belichick at the 50-yard line before the game started. Like when I look at those, I watch some of those interviews or when they show the cameras, and when you saw like Bill Belichick talk to Doug Peterson for Super Bowl 52, Belichick was like, hey, man, I tried to find a game where you guys were behind, and I couldn't find one. You know what I mean? It was just like I wanted to be able to see certain things, and I just couldn't figure that part out. It was just really tough. And you could tell, and Doug was like, thank you. You're a great coach too, blah, 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 blah. And then you watch the next year, and McVay was literally slobbing the knob of Bill Belichick. And you could tell right then and there, he overthought himself right in the very beginning. Bill Belichick didn't have to do much in that game. It was the defense that won that game for Tom Brady, although Tom Brady got his 6th.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers, the defense did great. Tom almost lost the game against the Washington football team with Heineke acting as Superman. Now, yeah, I mean, I remember that play. And if it wasn't for the defense bailing him out, and then Tom Brady played better games in the next 2 games, and then that's how they won the Super Bowl. So I'm not saying that Tom Brady didn't have anything to do with it. However, it was a different scenario for there. That team was ready to win right then and there.
So Shula has 347. Belichick has 332. So he needs 15 games. So if he were to coach for 2 more years and be average, he'd get it.
Right. So, and I wouldn't be surprised at that be it. That tells me that he's not going to Atlanta. Atlanta's not that unless you're doing a guaranteed, absolute guaranteed, no fire clause, 3 years. You got me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but if he were to go there, I mean, I'm not advocating for this by any means, but if he were to go there, they do have nice pieces on that team. If they get a competent quarterback in there, that's a above 500 team, right?
That's really all they're lacking. Atlanta just lacks a damn quarterback. If they had a quarterback that could pull it all together, I damn sure believe they were in the playoffs.
Well, also
I disagree with that just because the defense still couldn't keep points off the board.
Sure, but you also needed a coach that, didn't forget that Bijan was on the roster every other game.
and truthfully, a matter of the fact that nobody's gotten Kyle Pitts the ball enough to make him the tight end that we know he really is, or Drake London. Look, Washington Huskies don't have a defense, but they got one hell of an offense, and look where they are. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about them in another few minutes, so relax
on
that.
I'm just.
I know you dropped the segue. It was a little too early for the segue.
I know, but you can see how an offense though can't overcome a defense at certain, level.
KC has shown that because when KC won a ring, they didn't really have much defense. But the thing is Atlanta's defense isn't as bad as it looks. They just had an offense that could never stay on the field. So a lot of those games, time of possession was almost 2-1. I don't care how good your defense is. If you're on the field for 40 minutes, your numbers are not going to be great.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Their team isn't as bad as it looked, but yeah, they need a quarterback that is competent. They need a coach that remembers that they have like star players on their roster.
Well, no, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, Yeah, I'm not
I don't
sure
think they're a
about
great
being,
team. So let's not confuse that. I don't think they're a great team by any means, but they're better than what they showed.
I just think a tight end like Kyle Pitts has more to offer than what he's been given the opportunity for.
Sure. Well, and there's no
I
reason
agree
that a
with
guy
that.
like Bijan should have games where he gives you half a point on fantasy. Like, that makes no sense. Like, he could trip over the line and get more points than that. So, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a major coaching issue with that team.
I agree, and hence that's why he wasn't even allowed to go back into the facility. They're like,
Exactly.
"You're gone, buddy. Thank you for playing. We have some lovely parting gifts. A boot to your butt. Get out of here."
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I got to imagine that the GM. I mean, the GM got some nice pieces, except that he's. Yep. GMs live and die by the quarterbacks they choose. That's how that's going to work. And since the quarterback carousel was more last year, I don't believe that there's going to be as many quarterbacks this year that are going to switch teams. I think of one specifically, that probably will. Russell will probably be. I'd say Atlanta is a maybe early favorites, best of a bad bunch situation for him.
So let me ask you this then. If you're Atlanta, do you go after Wilson, who looks like he might be a little bit of an issue, or do you go after Cousins, who is a 4,000 yard a year quarterback every year of his career?
As long as he don't get
As
injured.
he's older and coming off of the injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's older, and the only issue I have with Kirk Cousins, like Pax just says, is the injury issue.
Sure.
I just don't know if he's going to get injured or not.
Yeah,
and that, you can go half a season and be great, and all of a sudden he throws that injury, then your season's done with.
Sure, but if you aren't using draft picks on a quarterback, say you go get Cousins, and again, I'm not a huge Cousins guy, but just for the sake of this argument, and you bolster that offensive line, you use Bijan the way you're supposed to, you actually have a great tight end for him to use as an outlet guy. His delivery, overall is actually pretty quick. So if you got a good back, you have a solid tight end and a good offensive line, Cousins can win you a lot of games.
Exactly. But I think if you're looking, it depends on which way the Falcons are looking. If they're looking long term, I'm drafting. If you're looking trying to win now, whatever. I think you kind of do it in the middle and you get both. I mean, you figure out Cousins or Wilson, which one can you get the best price? And I'm still going to draft a damn quarterback, sit him behind it just in case something goes left. Again, like I said, a Penix who somebody's pro ready. You don't have, he's not going to go number one. You don't have to move up as far. To me, that would be a good solution there as well.
Well, and when you look at them, they're in a division that you don't have to be elite to try and win now, right? Because that division isn't great.
It's not as good, right?
So winning the division, that's your first thing, and they're close enough to be like, hey, if we add a couple of pieces, we can get in the mix. And then once you get in, then you got to figure out how to win 4 games, right?
So here's the difference that I see. First off, I've always said that Kirk Cousins is a cowboy, as a coach killer. He's a coach killer, and that's a big issue. Beyond that, he's 1-4 in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and that's a big issue as well.
Sure.
Going on the
all the games are
opposite side of it. Yeah, going on the opposite side of that, you have somebody who has won a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl, has been to the playoffs numerous times. I feel that, I feel that he's past his prime. However, sure, I feel that he would come back a little bit more focused to be able to prove Denver wrong.
My only question with that, and I hear what you're saying, I do. My only issue with Wilson is I feel like he's a little bit more of a prima donna than what I like. And the fact that my coach has to tell me to give up my personal office and actually come and be a part of the team, I don't like any of that at all. And then the fact that you can't even go out there and lead your team to more than what they did, I don't know, man. I don't like any guy that thinks he's such a prima donna that he has to have a personal office outside of the team.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is, when you look at Wilson throughout this year, like his numbers aren't great, right? He had quite a few games where it was 120, 130 yards passing. Like some of the scores they put up looked good because he had a defense that was giving him the ball in positive territory, but it's not like he was putting up 300-yard games or anything. So it's and anytime he had to be the guy to drive down, they didn't win those games. So not to say that Wilson can't still play at a high level or anything like that. Obviously he can't. But if you're looking at it, Wilson versus Cousins, you get an easier guy in the locker room. You also get him for cheaper because of Wilson's crazy contract. But yeah, I mean, obviously neither one of those guys is the answer for the future. You're looking at an Atlanta team that is close enough in the mix that they can add some pieces to try and win their division today. And I think that's the only reason these conversations even happen. Because if they were in rebuild mode, say they were in the East where they're obviously not going to win, then all of a sudden you are trading pieces out and trying to get better, right? So this is some of this is because of the division they happen to be in.
Yeah. I just don't think Wilson has the drive or the hunger to want to get back to that kind of level.
Well, I guess we will see. He's got to get dropped first. So he's still under contract. Yeah, they're going to have to eat a lot to be able to do that. But
like crazy, crazy, right?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
So yeah, I mean, you gotta almost do what the Eagles did to Wentz, right? Where you're like, you know what, we're gonna pay you to just go away. And I mean, that's tough because this is only the second year of that contract. So they'd be eating a crazy dollar figure to make that happen. And as much as they may want him gone, I don't know if financially you can even do it, really.
Right.
Until next year. Like after next season, then there's an out and stuff. But I mean, if it's this year, I don't know how you eat that contract, especially the dead cap that would come out of it. I just don't know how you do that and effectively still pay the rest of your roster.
I agree. Well, that being said, let's take our break here. We're at the top of the hour. Got to do a quick commercial break, and we will be back at the start of the next hour with our Coast to Coast. So please stay tuned for our next hour.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, get it each.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And we are back for the second hour of Coast to Coast. I am Pags with Bo and McLovin. A quiet McLovin for the moment. He came out spitting fire because he's all excited that his Cal Turds are won the NFC East, and the NFC East for the 19th year in a row has not had consecutive winners.
That's crazy.
I'm just learning to find my place. That's all.
So, like I said, we talked a lot about the NFL yesterday. There is another game that's happening today that is tonight that's going to really determine who's going to win that big glass bulb of a football. The NCAA championship, national championship today between the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies. And as of right now, the line as it sits, and I tell you, I will talk about this in a minute. Michigan is a 5.5-point favorite, and the over/under being 55.5. Now, before you guys start talking about anything, because you guys are going to have a lot more to talk about this than I am, because I don't know enough about college football here. However, I will say this: a 5.5-point spread. Typically, when it ends at a 5.5-point spread, the underdog wins that game. And I want to say it's at like 70%. Not that that means anything. You know what I mean? It's a point spread, so it doesn't really determine the game at all. But just for some reason or another, a 5.5-point spread is not a good spread for a favorite. Floor's yours.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'll go first. I agree. A 5.5-point spread doesn't generally work out. And for whatever reason, the Huskies have really shown up anytime they're the underdog. So this is where I like Washington here. Most media outlets are picking Michigan to win. Vegas is picking Michigan to win. So there's two ways this game can go. If Washington can figure out how to slow down Michigan's running game, which, let's be honest, Washington has not been great against the run. But they did find a way to shut it down versus Oregon twice, right? Where they bring someone down and they were basically daring Bo Nix to beat them over the top. And they'll do the same thing with JJ, right? Like they're going to try and stack the box up so you can't run on them all day and then make you outplay them at the quarterback position. That's the scenario the Huskies need to actually win. And if that comes through, it'll probably be a 35-31 kind of game, and you'll just hit the over. If they can establish the running game, this becomes a very different game, and the Huskies have a hard time keeping up with that, especially if their defense has to be on the field all day. That becomes like a 24-17 kind of game, and that definitely favors Michigan. So for the Huskies to do what they need to do, they need to come out, punch it in the end zone, and then they really have to shut down that Michigan running game because both the offensive and defensive lines favor Michigan. It's the skill players where Washington has an advantage. So if they can kind of limit the effectiveness of that offensive line, that's really where this game comes down for Washington to win.
Yeah, for me, where it comes down where Michigan gets the win is limiting, and I hope I say his name right, Odunze. Is that how you say it, Bo? Something like that? Odunze? Yeah. Okay. He's a weird name. But anyway, if they can limit Odunze and not give up the deep ball, if they can learn from Texas and don't give up the deep ball, that really is a secret sauce to take it away Washington's ability to win the game. Let's be honest. Because if you know anything about that game against Texas, Johnson's hurt. He ain't 100%. And if you don't have 100% running back to quote-unquote play decoy to take the pressure off the wide receivers, you're not going anywhere.
I mean,
and if you don't know anything about Blake Corum at this point, you ain't been watching college football. This dude is the toughest running back I have seen in a country mile. I have seen this guy with blood on his face and just still racking up yards. Washington, and look, if you know anything about that Texas game, we were playing our second and third string running backs because Brooks was out. Our number one running back was out that game. And our second and third string running backs were putting 7 and 8 yards a time on these guys. If I had to fault Texas on that loss, it's because they didn't run the ball enough.
Yeah.
I felt like they should have ran the ball way, way more than what they did. But that game is gone. This game is here. Blake Corum, I promise you, is going to get the rock and he's going to get the rock early and often. And I don't think that Washington can keep up with the clock management that Michigan is going to put on them, the defense they're going to put on them. And as good as Michael Penix is, and this guy is good, really good. And I realized how good he was at this Texas game, because all along I was saying, well, the only team he's really had to go up against the whole time is Oregon. Not that Oregon is a slouch by any means, but that's really all he's had to really go up against, because Utah, their quarterback was hurt. USC has no defense. Oregon State is Oregon State. Really, Oregon was their only real competition. But when I saw them go up against Texas, and I continue to watch the way in which Michael Penix has a two-step drop or a one-step drop, how fluid he is in his mechanics, how he can see peripherally, it really changed my view on Michael Penix and how well he is pro-ready. But I got to be honest with you, man. I think Michigan's going to take this game based on their defense and their run game alone.
Yeah, I mean, the run game is the biggest piece of this, right? Like, if they can do what Texas was doing, then you're right. Michigan's defense would be the difference at that point. So the biggest thing that Washington has to do is be able to shut that running game down. Not that they're gonna stop the running game. That's definitely not an option. They don't have a good enough defense for that. But if they can slow it down, where maybe you do get a stop somewhere, and they are putting up points the way Washington can, because it is an offense heavy, right? Then all of a sudden, Michigan has to change how they're playing. You don't get a run as much because you got to try and keep pace. So if they can turn this into a track meet, that's why I say Washington can win a 35-31 game where they can't win a 24-17 game.
Right. And I'll tell you, and another thing that issued me was about that when Washington played Texas was, if you know Texas, they committed like 10 penalties that first half. They committed another 5 to 6 penalties in the second half. They had like 16 penalties. I mean, Texas is really shooting themselves in the foot. I make that point to say this. I don't think that Michigan is going to make those kinds of mistakes, at least not 10 penalties in the first half. And if you saw that, Texas was still in the game at the end. And I think for those reasons, even when we were getting 6 and 7 yard runs, Washington never adjusted for that, because we were still getting those same runs later in the second half. And that's why I'm saying your point is you think that Michigan or that Washington is going to adjust to quorum, and I didn't see them adjust to Texas. I don't know why they would all of a sudden now adjust to quorum, and that's why I kind of think that might not happen.
I think that adjustment didn't happen because they respect your quarterback more than Michigan's. Because when you look at what Michigan has done, they kind of don't look like they believe in their quarterback. So,
right.
And they did, and Michigan's quarterback did make mistakes against Alabama, right?
He did.
They had turnovers. They had mistakes. And although Washington's defense isn't a bruising defense where they can take on big running backs and all of that, they are opportunistic. So if your ball is off target, they find ways to get that ball. So that's why I think they do something like stacking the box, similar to what they did with Oregon, where they were making Bo Nix have to pass on them, right? Because going into that game, everybody was like, oh, yeah, their running game, and then with Bo Nix on top of it, they're going to take out Washington. You had that same storyline twice. So
right.
This is where I think you can capitalize if you bring one of those safeties down, stack the box up a little bit, and play opportunistic defense. JJ is going to make some mistakes. You just got to make sure you're in the area when it happens.
And I think that's what I'm saying. I agree with everything you're saying. And I think for that reason, if they actually do make that adjustment and they do start stacking the box to control what quorum can do at the run game, then it does truly make McCarthy the X factor in this game. Can McCarthy actually deliver and get this Michigan team to the promised land? You remember when they lost it last year to TCU, McCarthy vowed that this was going to be his year. That's why he came back to right the wrongs. Well, okay, McCarthy, if you want to right the wrongs, and if they do what Bo is saying and stack up against quorum, you're going to have to be the guy that takes this team to the next level. So will he live up to why he came back in the first place?
Well, and honestly, in the interest of a good football game, regardless of who wins, I hope that's the platform they use, because that'll be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Plus, I'm going to be at Wild Wings, so it's got to be that Wild Wing remote action, right? Like maybe a couple of overtimes, get me a couple extra beers. You know, if Buffalo Wild Wings wants to sponsor our show, that'd be awesome.
Hey, all I know is next year, Bo, I'm gonna find out where you live. I'm gonna come and we're gonna have some beers together. Don't invite Pags because we'll just bring the mute button over.
Nah, if I'm face to face, I'll be louder than you. Don't worry about that.
Oh no, you ain't seen the real McLovin. I'm giving you the much toned down. This is very toned down McLovin. I can throw some more paint on too. Trust me, it ain't a big deal for me. Throw a big hat on. We can go round and round, you and me, because I'm a Virgo and I've been in loud situations in the military, so I can be loud. But I'm trying to be respectful, Pags. This is your show. I'm trying to be a respectful host. Be quiet.
This isn't my show. This is our show.
Well, I don't know. We did it 3 times on the show, so when did it become my show?
Because sometimes you just don't shut up.
Yes, sir.
Anyways.
I'll throw away the cue, too.
Well,
here are some things. Here are some college football betting trends that I pulled up because I have a lot to talk about here. Like I said, I don't know much about college football, so I definitely know how to, when to step back when I'm supposed to. But right now, bettors are backing the underdog and the national championship, putting 67% of against the spread handle and 90% of the money line handle on Washington. The Huskies are 5-0 as betting underdogs under Coach Kellen DeBauer.
Yeah.
In terms of the game total, the over is unsurprisingly the public play. Bettors are putting 80% on the handle of this game going over the posted 56.5 points. These two teams, however, last year combined for only 47 points in the Alamo Bowl. Yeah. Those are the two big betting trends happening.
Yeah, well, and I'm with that. I would take Washington to cover and the over. Because otherwise, it's going to be an ugly game.
I got a question, Bo, if you don't mind. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
And this is because I know you do follow sports a little bit more than Pags does, so I really wanted your opinion on this. Jim Harbaugh, correct me if I'm wrong. Next year, if he decides to stay with Michigan on that big contract, would he not be? I think he's supposed to be removed from the games. Correct? He's suspended for a little while next season. Correct?
So nothing official has actually happened yet. That being said, they do want to suspend him for the entire season.
Right.
So that seems crazy. Honestly, I think where this really becomes kind of interesting is if Michigan wins. So say they win, right. I could see him saying, you know what? I came here. I did it.
That's why I wanted to ask you that question. Because no, seriously, the fact that you said that's exactly why. Because it brings me to my follow-up. So exactly. So you got because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking which is why I think Michigan. That's another X factor in this game. Why I think Michigan could win because I think those players want to win it for Harbaugh too. They got that momentum driving that train. And I think they know, and I think Jim wants it really bad too, so he can jump to the NFL next year, bypass that whole suspension thing, because the coach they got in the wings has already proven throughout the season that he can lead this Michigan team. So they already know they got the guy in the backup that can continue the program. So I think it works out well for everybody for Michigan to win this game. So I'm wondering, is the X factor or another X factor that Michigan wins is that everybody wants to get it for Coach Harbaugh, themselves, and all the scrutiny that Michigan has had to go through over the scandal?
Well, I think a lot of it also is you got to keep in mind they have a lot of just players across the entire roster that are going to be in the NFL next year. So this team is going to lose almost half its roster this offseason. Right. So this is a get it done now thing anyway, because it's not like, we just missed it, we'll come back next year. Like he's going to have to do some very real recruiting to try and get back to this level next year, especially with the additions of teams within these within these conferences now that the Pac-12 has fallen apart. So it's also a little bit telling when you look at the fact that Michigan did offer him a contract that he hasn't signed yet because it had verbiage in it that says he can't entertain NFL contracts if he signs it, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, then it shows that he does have interest in the NFL already. Because otherwise, if he was truly like, hey, I'm here for the long run, he's going to sign that thing because the money was no joke. Right? Like it was a huge contract. So
I think it's 12 at 125, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's right. So, and some of that is you're going to be suspended for a year, right? So one of those, you're just getting paid to like hang out on the beach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's incentive there. If he loses, now I have a question on, does he come back? Because then he's been in championship games at both levels, couldn't get it done, right? He's been to a Super Bowl, lost, been to a national title, lost. Does he stay to try and finish one of those? That's a real possibility. But if he wins, man, you have to think he moves on, especially when you figure the NFL is going to have 10 vacancies by the end of this week, really.
Yeah. So here's my thought. And again, they don't pay me a lot of money to think these thoughts. So if he wins, if he does win, I think that Carolina, the owner there, especially as ridiculous as that owner is, offers him a 10-year, $150 million contract, and becomes the GM and the coach. Okay. And the reason why I say it like that is because you'd have to do both. You'd have to give him both options there. And then also, you got to make it longevity because you're in a world of mess.
Right.
Up until you fix it.
Right.
So it's like, and because he's got to try to get better in the better graces of things. That's why I think he would throw money at the problem, because that's what this guy does. He throws money at the problem.
Yeah.
So give it. So I don't think it's ridiculous to think that guy, that owner down there, could go and just say, okay, you just won the national championship. I'm going to hand you the keys to my franchise. Right. And I'm going to make sure that you don't have the opportunity. I can't fire you. You have like a no fire clause for at least 3 years, and you're 10 years, $150 million.
Yeah. Right. So Tepper has proven that he's incapable of doing any of those things.
No, you're right. You're right.
And besides, if you were Harbaugh, there's no way you take that job. Because
I don't think he wants to be. I don't think he wants somebody telling him he can't go interview if he decides down the road that he wants to interview. I think that plus, look, this guy's a competitor. He doesn't want to be sitting on the beach. He could have been doing that a long time ago. He's got plenty of money to do it.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about sitting on the beach. I'm talking about taking a team from zero, bottom of the barrel, and bringing it up. Like that would.
I don't know if they were ever zero. I mean, they've always had a halfway deep. They may not be like top 10 or whatever, but they've always had a halfway decent team.
He's talking about the Panthers.
Oh, my bad. I thought he was talking about me. I apologize.
No, he's talking about the Panthers. No, so I can. This is why you don't take that job in general, because the way that they set this team up this last year was self-sabotage, right? Like over the last 2 years, you get CMC out of there. You basically don't address a bad offensive line. You go get Bryce Young, which, I don't know if he's a Bryce Young guy or not, but that's who you got. And then you have a owner who is invariably
controlling, Jerry Jones-like in some ways.
Well, it's worse because he's so impatient. He's gone through 4 coaches in 2 years. That's amazing.
He's got more than that, but I agree with that. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to go to an ownership group where the owner is going to tell him who he's going to draft. I don't think Jim does that. I don't think he's that kind of guy.
One of the biggest parts of this is in the self-sabotage that they did with the team. They also don't have draft picks. So it's not even like he can bring his guys. Yeah. Where what probably makes the most sense for Harbaugh is you go to the Chargers. Because
Atlanta. If Atlanta won't be there because they will probably already solidified at that point.
Well, the biggest thing is if you go to the Chargers versus Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
The Chargers, you have a franchise quarterback. You have nice pieces on the roster, right? And you have draft picks, which means he can draft the kids that he's just been coaching this next draft. So he doesn't have to do any crazy scouting or anything like that. He just coached them to a national.
He don't have to do any crazy scout with Atlanta. If he comes out this year and Atlanta is willing to wait on him, he don't have to. The only thing he's got to scout with is not a hard scout. Is maybe 3 or 4 quarterbacks to figure out who he's going to throw it in that number 1 spot. Which I still think he goes with Penix Jr. because he is the most pro ready if he wants to compete right away.
Well, but if you think about it, if you went to the Chargers instead of Atlanta, so we'll compare the two, right? So you go to Atlanta, you have to waste your first pick on a quarterback because you need a guy, right?
Wait, not with the Chargers because you got Herbert.
No.
If you're in San Diego, your first picks have got to be wide receiver because neither one of your wideouts can stay healthy.
No, I said with Atlanta.
So stop. But you guys are missing one big team that I think could also be in the mix for that and would be done in a very specific way and would also be very interesting. Washington.
I agree with you.
Have the second pick of the draft. His brother is right down the street, literally right down the street.
Yeah, but that's a lot of building back. I mean, again, as long as the ownership group is willing to be patient with him while he rebuilds that team, then yeah, I can see Washington working out. But you've got to have a good understanding.
That's the one thing I would say about the Harris group. The Harris group specifically is big on that. You know what I mean? They are big on being patient with coaches. Trust me, I dealt with it with Doc.
They're going to have to be with that group. I mean, with that team.
And that's the thing is it's going to come down to what does Harbaugh want to do? Does he want to rebuild something or does he want something where he can add pieces that he has an inside track on and be a winner immediately?
I think the winning immediately would be the most part because I don't think he would have an issue rebuilding a team. If he has control over the rebuild, I don't think he would have an issue with that. And again, these would all be worked out in that interview process. And if everything worked out, then I think he would do it if they're willing to give him what he wants to rebuild with.
Yeah,
I don't think he's not somebody about the time span as he is just having the control over the team and the patience of the ownership group to do that. I think that'd be fine.
I mean, but if you look at it at face value, right? So let's compare those 3 teams, right? You got Atlanta that has noticeable holes in places, right? Like quarterback, obviously huge, but there's issues with the team. Washington, 100% just dumpster fire, rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
The Chargers, you have a KC team that's fallen off, right? They just don't have weapons on offense, right? You have a Raiders team that who knows where they're going. And you have a Broncos team that is disintegrating from the inside. You have a franchise quarterback there. You have to figure out quarterback the other 2 locations. You have, okay weapons in Atlanta and the Chargers. Washington, again, full rebuild.
But they're okay weapons for a reason. They're okay weapons because they don't have a damn quarterback to make use of the weapons, right?
No. But that's what I mean. Like they have okay weapons. So you bring in a quarterback and you can do something there. But then when you look at this Michigan team that he's going to be able to poach players from, right, in the draft, they can address the fact that the defense for the Chargers has been bad, right? It's been a terrible.
Yeah, it's not well. I mean, outside of Bosa, who's sometimes injured, sometimes not injured. Yeah, you're right. They have issues there.
But through most of the season, they were a 400-yard a game, 20 points, 20 or 24, 26 points a game, right? So you have a viable offense. Michigan has a great defense. So if you can bring in similar to what the Eagles did, where they brought in half of Georgia's defense to fill in gaps. If they were to do something like that to the Chargers, all of a sudden that AFC West division isn't as tough as it's been in the past. Like KC looks very beatable. Right?
No, if you're talking about division and like what division you want to compete in, yeah, that would be the division. The only thing I think that kind of puts them in a better spot with Washington is the fact that Washington is going to be horrible for a hot minute, which is going to give him a lot of number 1 or a lot more chances in the top 10 at drafting than he would if he went to the Chargers, where, he still has a pretty good team and he may not get the draft picks that he wants unless he trades up for.
True, but you also don't need the number 1 picks because you have guys in place. right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, typically was, especially in this draft, right, where the top 10 is going to be heavily quarterback driven, and maybe a couple of wide receivers and a couple of offensive tackles. So I see a lot of trades actually happening in this draft, where you can wait to the back end of the draft and still probably get a couple of good wideouts or a couple of good defensive players if you need defense, especially if you need defense. You should be able to draft some pretty good defensive linemen towards the end of the first, even going into the second, right? So
or does he just embrace the dumpster fire and go with the Panthers or go with the Bears? Right.
Well, you're not going with I go with the Bears before I went with the Panthers. I'll tell you. And I think that just has to what you said earlier, Bo, about the owners and Pags about the ownership group. I don't think I go to the Panthers just because of ownership. I'm much more likely to go to the Bears, who, number one, I got an assload of draft picks still at my disposal to basically form what including the number one. So if I'm stepping into the Bears draft this year, I can say, okay, is Fields really my guy, or do I want to go after pretty much anybody in the quarter draft class, which, by the way, is pretty damn deep. And or do I want to trade back, take a wide receiver, and draft back to like 3 or 4, and come back and get my quarterback that I think is in the future because it is so deep.
I mean, to the Bears, doesn't he? He used to be a Bear, right? I mean, he was a Bears quarterback.
I think Harbaugh was a Indianapolis quarterback.
Yeah.
He was a Colts guy, I think, in the early late 90s. And was Harbaugh? I don't think he was. He might have been.
I don't remember if he was.
I know he was with the Colts. I remember that specifically. But I'm not sure that.
Those are like, if I was going to do a rebuild, that's probably like the Bears would probably make the most sense because you have.
I think that's a dream rebuild, isn't it?
Jim Harbaugh lost the 1991 NFC Wild Card playoff game for the Bears.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
See, I remembered him.
Yeah, I mean,
again, I know he played with the Colts.
87 to 93.
Yeah,
87 to 93. So yeah,
okay.
See, I do know what I'm talking about a little bit.
I was going to say, when you look at Washington or the Panthers, right, they're kind of waiting for the Steelers to go ahead and pull the trigger on releasing Tomlin because both of those ownership groups had ties to the Steelers ownership group originally. So they would be the first two to make phone calls if the Steelers do decide, hey, maybe we do want to move on from Tomlin.
How do you release Tomlin? How do you release him?
I don't know how you do, but they seem like there's a lot of interest there, which seems crazy to me.
That's a trade. That would be a trade then. You'd have to trade for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I would think so as well. And I don't think they're not going to get rid of Tom. That dude hadn't had a losing season since God knows when. I don't think he's ever had a losing season.
Never had a losing season.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think he's been winning the whole time.
Yeah, his worst seasons, I think he had 3 8-8s.
Chris just sent me a post here. Chris is
there you go.
He's my fact guy a lot of the time. He's just sent me a post where the Chargers are gaining steam, that it's a possible sign, win and sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely the one where he has the least amount of work to make it a winning team.
Bo, if you're Jim and you walk into that Chargers organization, you're getting ready to go to the draft, do you think you trade up to try to get a Marvin Harrison or a Doozy, which could pretty much be the guy that solidifies when one of your two wideouts, whether it be Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, goes down on injury? You can plug this guy in pretty easily and be good to go?
Yeah, I think you can do some of that. The other thing that you can do is you can get rid of some of your high-priced defense because, again, Michigan has a lot of defensive players that you're going to be able to get mid-rounds. And
Are you getting rid of Mack?
No, I mean, he's a difference maker. I don't know that you do.
I mean, he is, right?
Yeah.
But you get rid of him because he is going to be high priced, like you said.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can alleviate some pressure in other places, because the kids coming out of the draft in the 3rd round, they don't cost a lot. So you can still have some bigger contracts if you have a younger team around a few players, right? Like you can have Bosa, you can have Mac, and then you fill it in with some younger talent that doesn't cost a lot. Similar to like when you have expensive receivers, but you have a quarterback that's on his rookie deal. Like you can do a lot more things. Now, obviously, they're paying for a quarterback there, but they have nice pieces, so they only have to supplement areas. They don't necessarily have to rebuild the whole thing.
Well, I don't know. My thought is that if you're going to be a coach, that it's sometimes better to do a full rebuild so that you have the team in your image
Sure.
rather than have to deal with the extra pieces. Now, the extra pieces sometimes are trade bait to be able to move and go back and forth with whatever. But ultimately, I kind of believe that I would still want to rebuild. And when you think about Washington, that obviously you're not maybe sold on the quarterback. They do have a good receiver. They do have a good tight end. They have a halfway decent offensive line. They still have halfway decent defensive line. Montez Sweat was the first player ever in the NFL history to be the sack leader for two teams, which is
Yep.
funny to me.
Yep.
So that's kind of shame that they traded him off, but I understand why they did it. Again, they got more picks and they got more things, assets to be going for. And I believe, like I said, the Harris group is going to want somebody who's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yep.
So, and now you're being a part of the group with Magic Johnson and a few other people out there in the mix, so that they are able to say, okay, this is what we're doing. Where, like I said, your brother is right up the street, so.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, my wife's in the restroom. She needs some toilet paper. Can you send me over your sweatshirt real quick?
Oh man. That's a weird left turn there.
I'm sorry. I had to throw Pags a left hand every now and
Every
then.
time he's on, he's wearing green, though. He is wearing eagle green, by the way.
That is kind of weird.
This is not eagle green. If anything, this is like teal Jaguars.
It's Kelly Green. It's Kelly Green. It shows as Kelly Green. I'm
actually
you're
wearing
a closet
my,
Eagles fan. You ain't got to say it. You ain't going to say it. You're a closet Eagles fan. We know.
Okay, I'm sorry. My bad. I did go left, and Pags brought me back right. So
I wouldn't rule out Washington for sure. I mean, there's obviously a lot of upside to it because they do have picks. There's a lot they can do. Like if you wanted to do a full rebuild, you could do it there. Obviously, the Bears would be very similar in that way. Because again, you have to imagine their coach is getting fired. But I mean, of the full rebuild options, those are the two I would take. If you wanted a shorter path, then the Chargers makes the most sense.
I agree with you, Bo. I think the Bears. If I'm coming out as a quarterback or as a coach, or if I'm wanting to come out as a coach like Harbaugh or whoever it may be, you got to think Chicago is probably a dream job number one because of what they have and what they have in the draft picks. I think if you're wanting to do a rebuild where you have your full 100% stamp, I think Washington is another one. And then from there, I think the Atlanta job and the San Diego jobs. I mean, those are 5 jobs. If I'm a coach, either one of those 5, I'm going to be happy with. But probably the first 2, I'll be most happy, just because I could put what I want on that team and not be inherited what somebody else gave me.
Yeah.
Well,
I like this. I like this down below. It looks like it's Dolphins colors. That's because he wants to wear the color of a team that's going to win in the playoffs.
Oh shit! Oh, ouch! Ouch! Ouch!
That other being said is that going with Chicago again, just spitballing here. Chicago being very close to Michigan, you know what I mean. You'd be able to actually move a fan base a little bit. You would be able to have a lot of support. Not that Bears fans aren't supportive anyways, but you'd have a tremendous amount of support around there. And then also, you're saying that they're losing half of their team. What they're really losing is half of their starting team.
Which are the ones you care about.
Right, but the other half could walk on somewhere.
Sure.
And those are the ones that, like the cornerbacks and the safeties and the inside and outside linebackers that could go for a tryout in Chicago and have a little bit more of a leg up doing that, because 1, it's close. 2, you're familiar with the coach. So again, I think the Chicago thing does make sense as well. But I ultimately feel money is the thing. And I got to imagine that if they were to, even if Pittsburgh was to trade Tomlin, they're not. Tomlin's going to refuse going to Carolina. Why would I put my 500 record at risk? Yeah, I've been over 500 every year that I've coached. He's got over 150 wins already, and he's only coached 11 seasons, 12 seasons.
Yeah, 12, I think. Yeah,
maybe even more, maybe 15 seasons even. But he's got over 150 wins already.
Yeah,
and he's still young. He's still young.
So,
and I'm not a fan of Tomlin. I'm not a fan of Tomlin.
Money's the thing that basically rules out the Raiders then, yeah?
Yeah, I don't see him going to the Raiders.
So you
they
think,
have a bad,
oh God, hell,
not
the Raiders.
So you think they give Pierce a real chance then? You think you think he did well enough at the end through the end of this season that he gets a real shot? I mean,
No.
I think he did.
No, I don't think he did well enough. I don't think he did anything at all. I think he kept. I think that the inmates ran the asylum there.
I mean,
they did. Yeah,
the players took over that team, and the coaches was just a name. There was just a namesake up there for the coach.
That means you need a strong coach to come in and take over that team. But I do like the fact they have two really good running backs. They have one really good wideout in Devontae Adams. I think that team just needs a strong-willed, very well-coached head coach. It can take over that team. I think the Raiders could be brought back to life, but they need the right guy at the helm to do it. They got
the biggest problem that everybody else has: 3 bad quarterbacks.
Exactly.
But could the Raiders draft up? No, could the Raiders, draft up and get one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks?
I don't think they have to. I don't think they
I agree. Matter of fact, I have seen several posts where they have offered several first-round picks plus Max Crosby to get that first-round pick. Don't be surprised if the Raiders draft up, offer up Crosby.
If they did that, I wouldn't want. If they did that, I wouldn't want that job anymore. If you get rid of.
I agree. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, look, the most important spot on that damn team is the quarterback, and they don't have that. Sometimes you may have to give up a little to get what the hell you really need.
Well, I don't think.
How long are you going to wait for that?
I don't think you'd have to, because they're going to have a mid-first round pick. Right, so you'd be able to get a Penix or a Bo Nix or something like that. So it's not, you're not going to go.
I don't know if you're getting Penix at like 12 or 13. I think if it was me, I could see giving up a 2025 first rounder and Max Crosby. That's probably all I would give up. I would give up Max Crosby and a 2025 first rounder to move up to number 1 and get a guy like, maybe not number 1. Maybe you have to give up Max Crosby to get Penix, right? Because I think to your credit, you said that I don't think Penix goes 1, so you don't have to necessarily get the 1 to get Penix. I think you could do. I think there's flexibility. Yeah, they give it way too much for getting the number 1, so maybe you give up a little bit less and go, like you said, somewhere between 6 and 10, Raiders and try to get 13.
Oh, okay. So there you go, 13. So they could absolutely get Penix there, because the thing that's going to hurt Penix in this draft is 1, his age,
and 2, his knees.
Exactly.
I'm totally with you. And that's why I don't think he goes first. So I think you're right. I think if you're drafted 13, I'm watching the draft and watching what happens. And if it looks like a lot of the quarterbacks are going off the realm, I may jump up and try to get to like number 8 or number 7 and maybe give up a first rounder to get the guy that I want. Because let's be honest, a Penix is still better than what you have or what you may not get come next 2 or 3 drafts.
And so is a Bo Nix is the thing. And Bo Nix,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
He's going to be an upper level second rounder probably, right? Like he's going to be early in the second round. So at 13, you're going to have a lot of options. So I don't know that you necessarily have to give up a bunch to go get somebody. I think you can actually hang out at 13, and one of those guys is going to be there for you. Because that's one good thing about this draft is there's quite a few quarterbacks in it.
And then I'll tell you one thing about the draft, though. In the top 10, there's at least 4 or 5 teams that need a quarterback.
I mean, yeah, but then you also have the Bears.
I'm just saying, like, realistically, in this draft, there's probably about 4 or 5, I think, guys that could come in and not be a bust at the quarterback position. So you got to think, too. And again, Bo, I think you just got to follow the draft and see how it flows out to know whether or not you think you need to jump or not jump.
Well, and
but I do think what you're saying, you don't have to jump with as much give up capital as what you're saying they were talking about giving up.
No,
and I agree with that. I do.
You definitely don't. Well, and it also comes down to whatever it is the Bears are going to do. Do they are they convinced that Fields is their guy, or are they taking a quarterback? I mean, I don't know, right? So you're going to have, say, the Bears keep Fields, right, and they, go at either they trade back or they go. I
got the Bears trade back to number 3 with I think it's either Arizona or somebody. I think it's Arizona's at 3. I got the trade back to number 3 or 4.
The Patriots.
I don't see the Bears. If the Bears plan to stay with Fields, which let's be honest, if they weren't going to stay with Fields, we'd already hear some rumblings about that. I don't think they're going to trade Fields. I think they're going. But if they do, if they stay with Fields, I think they trade back to 3 or 4 to get the wide receiver they want.
I don't think we know yet because we don't know who their coach and GM are going to be.
Now, that's true. You don't.
If Flus comes back, maybe we still don't know because we never know what he's actually doing. But I'm not convinced he knows what he's doing. But if it switches, then it's going to be whatever coach GM tandem comes in. Do they believe in Fields? Because that's the biggest thing, right?
Well, it is. And also, do you think if I trade back to 3, I get maybe a draft pick or 2 draft picks extra out of that? I got DJ Moore on one side. I could put a Marvin Harrison or that Adunzi on the other side. Now I got a pretty damn good solidified, wide receiving core with Kmet at the tight end, and then I got a plethora of running backs behind me. I mean, that could be an enticing move.
If I remember right, the Bears have 2 first-rounders anyway, right? So,
they do have 2. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so their second first-rounder is like, what, 10?
Offensive line. Oh, my God, it better be offensive line.
Exactly. So then all of a sudden, Fields may look very different if he has more protection.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at with that. And I think they even have enough draft picks next year. I mean, God forbid if somebody came out like a Ewers came out or whatever. I'm not saying Ewers is the guy, but I mean, there's somebody there that they could possibly take a look. If Fields, for whatever reason, didn't work out, having 2 number 1 type wide receivers and an offensive lineman thrown in, and you still can't do something with that.
Sure.
I think at some point you got to say, okay, it's time to pull the plug on it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Bears most of this year, though, they were only asking him to throw to the flat, basically, because he never had time to get anywhere. So, I don't know. The Bears are a huge question mark, whether it's on the field or in the front office. Man, there's a lot that's got to happen with that team. But yeah, so all of a sudden that changes how the early part of the draft goes, though.
Right. I think with Fields, he just has to learn how to read the defenses better. That's my biggest thing with Fields. He doesn't read the defense quite the way I would want him, or as quick as I would want him to read it and call those audibles when you need to call the audibles. I mean, it's just things like that. And I think you're right. I think it has to do with the coaching staff. So whoever you bring in, if you're going to bring in somebody to replace Eberflus, you want somebody that can develop Fields a little bit more on the intellectual side, to get him where he needs to be. And who knows? I think it could happen. I don't think Fields is a total bust. I think he still can be salvaged to be the guy you want him to be because he does have legs. At the end of the day, he can still move around in the pocket like a Jackson. So
and that's the biggest thing, right? Is when you looked at Lamar, when he went to the Ravens, he had a exceptionally well-run organization that he landed with, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they gave him an offensive line. And so he was able to evolve his game from being a run-first kind of guy to, let's be honest, he can throw from the pocket now. That was something
he can. Yeah. Well, I thought the biggest improvement with Fields was when Mark Andrews, his number 1 guy, went down, and then he was able to still find other targets. I thought that was the biggest leap in his growth ever.
Sure. No, absolutely.
That was the biggest thing with him, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that he can still progress that way if he gets more protection, gets some weapons.
Right.
I don't think he's the bust that people try to bill him out to be. Now, do I think he's as good as the Fields lovers think he is? No. But there's middle ground there, right? Like I'm
on the fence of, like you said, give him an offensive lineman, give him another threat to throw to, and then let's see and then give him a new head coach that can develop him. Yeah, I think you're on the wait and see. I don't know if you can make a full assessment that he's a bust at this point. I think you got to give him a little bit more weaponry and a little bit more protection, and then give him a coach that can help him develop psychologically and watching that game tape to know when to call certain audibles. Yeah, I think there's still some developmental room with Fields that you don't give up. Me personally, I don't think you give up on him quite yet.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough information on it. Like we've seen bad football, but he's been in bad situations. So do I think he's, going to be the next MVP or anything like that? Absolutely not. But do I think he is more than a serviceable quarterback? I think he can be. I don't know that he is currently.
I think the jury's still out on him is what I think we're saying. Like, we're not going to say he's a gap fill, but we're not going to say he's a number one either, right? I think we just need, like you said, and even Terp said, maybe next year we can have more information off of this draft and what he does during the next season to really make a more formidable answer as to whether or not he is or is not the guy.
No,
but at the same time, I'm not going to get mad if they trade up and try to get, or if they take a Caleb Williams number one with all of his talent.
They better.
I don't know, but if I'm them, I'm probably going to wait.
Yeah, they better get him an offensive line if they're going to go get Caleb Williams. So,
but let me ask you this, Bo and Pags: if you're coming in and you're making this your team, and this is your chance to get the guy at number one you want, what do you do at that point? Because this is your stamp. This is you saying, "Hey, I'm not going to get rid of Fields. I think I'm okay." So you're agreeing to this, and if it turns out to not be okay, does that then again ruin you? Because you had the opportunity at number one to get what you wanted.
Well, I mean, no worse than the opportunity they gave away last year. So,
well, that's true. Hey, you got a point.
Well, I mean, but to answer your question, yes, it does. But that's true if you draft the guy number one and he's a bust, right? Like if you're the GM in either one of those scenarios, you probably don't keep your job. Like that. Right. That's the one thing that's tough about a number one pick, right? Like if you take a quarterback in the third round and he shows out, you look like a genius. If he falls apart, you'd be like, I took a third round flyer on him. It didn't matter. Yeah. So, but if you get a guy for first overall, then yeah, all of a sudden, that can definitely negatively affect your ability to keep your job, unless you happen to be John Lynch.
If you pick the wrong one.
Well, unless you happen to be John Lynch and you get lucky as Mr. Irrelevant can come in and you can say, hey, you know what? We're not going to double down on our bad decision for our first round pick that we gave up the moon to go get. We're just going to trade him for nothing to the Cowboys and move on with our placeholder in Brock Purdy. So, I mean, There are scenarios you can survive it, but it doesn't happen very often.
Right. And now circling back, because obviously we went back into football where the NFL, where I was trying to keep it in the NCAA. Picks for tonight. Michigan versus Washington. Michigan 5.5 point favorite, and it is at 56.5.
I'll go for it. Yeah, it was Bo's fault that we went that direction, Pax, not mine.
So we were actually still talking about college, believe it or not, because we were talking where
we kind of were
would fit. So even though
I got Michigan, I'm on the board for Michigan.
Yeah, and I got Washington here. I think it's going to be the over. I think it's going to be Washington.
I'm gonna just pick with my heart and go Washington. I don't want Michigan to win. I would rather Michigan.
Oh, I don't want Michigan to win either. I hate Michigan. I hate the Big Ten.
That being said, also wanted to let everybody know, I gave you guys 5 picks the other day. 3 of them hit, 2 of them did not. So I am still at my 66% with my picks. There's only one pick that falls into my system today. That is the Los Angeles Clippers -6.5. So if you're the betting man, the LA Clippers -6.5 tonight against whoever it is they're playing. It's whoever it is, they're gonna beat them by 7 points at the very least. So, and it was only out of the 2 losses, one wasn't really a bad beat. It just went into overtime and they didn't score enough points. So I wanted to give you my little NBA stuff since we were talking about the NCAA, and a lot of football today going on. But obviously tomorrow we will talk about what happened in the national championship, and how it was that that Washington was able to beat Michigan and blow them out, because Harbaugh is just a bad coach, and now how he's not going to go to the NFL, and all of that fun stuff is going to occur. So I don't know that for real, but I'm just saying out loud. Just like the Cowboys, Michigan's going to be like the Cowboys and lose.
If it was anybody else other than Pags, I would probably get offended. But with Pags, I just take it as he's just an Eagles fan. It's all good. It's divisional love. That's all that is.
Exactly.
100%. Pags, that's what thick skin looks like. If you didn't know. I didn't mute you, Pags. I didn't mute you.
Well, that's because you don't have the ability to.
I know. That's okay. Nothing here nor there. I just wanted to put that out there. I didn't mute you, okay? I got thick skin, okay?
Well, I appreciate it. So anybody who happens to be going to the Flyers game tonight, I will be at the Flyers game, so I will be missing the first half of the national championship, but we'll catch the second half. I'm sure I'll catch up on all the highlights and everything. Tomorrow, McLovin will not be with us to talk sports. However, or you will be tomorrow, won't you?
Yeah, I'll be here tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because because you're going to be on my show at 3. So literally, when we get done with this show, you're going to jump on my.
He will have the power to mute me. He will have the power to mute me.
But I don't do that to Pags because I love Pags.
Yeah, you just kick him straight out of the studio. You're just like, bye.
We're not gonna look at his face either. It's gonna just kick him on. So, everybody, thank you very much for hanging with us today. We really do appreciate it. All the comments and everything. Tune in tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Make sure to follow us on Roku. You can see us on the big screen. We look better, bigger. So come check us out there.
Definitely the second one. I don't know if the first one's true, but the second one's true. We'll be bigger. I don't know if better.
Speak for yourself. I always look great. So, but anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging with us today, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon with Coast to Coast. Have a great night, guys.
Wait, before we jump off, again,
okay.
if you're in Western Washington and you are in the Linwood area, I'm going to watch the national championship there at Buffalo Wild Wings. Come out, say hi, let's have some beer and watch some football.
Gotcha. And also, well, since we're doing that, if you are looking to travel with the Philly Sports Guy to Tampa Bay, go to my link tree. It's in my bio. You can go to phillysportstrips.com and go ahead and book. We are going down there. We're going to give you some options. You don't have to go you can go for just one day and go to the game, or you could go down there and spend the weekend down in Tampa Bay. Both of those options are going to be available to you. So if you want to go travel with the Philly Sports Guy and go to Tampa to watch the Eagles beat up on the Buccaneers and get ready for the Cowboys, then you would be best to come with me and Philly Sports Trips. So,
or just wait for the Cowboys, because nobody gives a damn about Tampa and the Eagles.
Anyway. Well, listen, if we go for the divisional game, am I going to see you there at the game?
Oh, you're going to see me there at the game.
All right. So if we go to Dallas for the divisional game, I'll be there. So,
you're going to be at the game in Dallas? Of course you will. You know why? Because you got Cowboys underwear on. Don't you closet Packers.
And that's our
Green
show.
Is the
Thanks
best.
for coming in.
Everybody, have a great night, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.
Take these guys.